So a big welcome to Control the Controllables, our French Open review panelists. How are you doing?
Great, thanks.
Good, thanks. How are you?
Fozzie, that's a less enthusiastic hello than you gave me the other 6 times. I am doing okay here from Morocco, despite a little bit of Wi-Fi issues. So anybody that is struggling to hear us, or if this cuts out halfway through, that's all you're going to get from us tonight. So we'll absolutely try our best. We are 2 people short. We are Candy Reid and Calvin Betton. They messed up their picks, didn't they? They didn't want to come on and face the music. Calvin got a little lucky, as you guys did, with the Carlos Alcaraz win. It certainly wasn't looking that way at 2-1, 5-3, 40 love. And then 5 hours, 29 minutes later, he was crowned the French Open champion. Quite incredible final. And Freddie, to chuck it to you first, where does that one rank amongst the great finals that we've had over the years?
I mean, I think it's definitely up there with one of the best ones I've ever seen. I think I hear people talk about it from people who are not usually watching tennis. I think it's it's important for the new generation to have this kind of rivalry and matchup between them and have this kind of potential for finals. So I also think there's a little bit of hype around that gives it a few extra notches upwards, but yeah, no doubt it's up there with one of the best I've ever seen. And just the physicality at the end and the drama of the match points and the up and down. It's a great spectacle. I really enjoyed it.
What I enjoyed about it the most was there was no bullshit. They didn't go for long toilet breaks, long clothing changes. They just got on with it like 2 gladiators in the ring and just went head for head, toe for toe, all the way down the wire. So yeah, I thought it was great. I think it's great for tennis. It shows tennis is healthy. Shows there's a rivalry there that's going to be there for the next decade or so. Yeah, no, it's just refreshing to see. There was no bullshit.
I totally agree. And there were so many examples of them just going up, checking a mark. Oops, that was in your point. Not trying to argue or should have replay the point. Just straight up, they genuinely seem like they have respect and they enjoy each other's company, while at the same time want to beat each other as much as anyone. And I think that's nice. I'm all for the rivalries where you can feel the bitterness towards each other and there's a little bit of hatred there. That's all good. But I think there's also room and space for a rivalry where people like each other when it is, as it appears to be here, genuine. So I completely agree with you, Voss. That was a big part of my enjoyment too.
And a big shout out to Jannik Sinner. I know I said in our WhatsApp group yesterday, I only see Jannik Sinner winning this. I honestly did, and I honestly felt. I think I said it on the preview. There's one person that can beat him, and that's me backtracking on my pick of Sinner there, guys, if you haven't picked that up. But I did say Alcaraz is the one that can. However, I didn't think he was going to do it yesterday. And Sinner put himself, let's be honest, into the position to win that tennis match yesterday. If we go through the match points, he really had an opportunity on all 3 match points. The second serve return at 15-40. Jannik Sinner doesn't often miss that backhand return. It wasn't a great second serve by Alcaraz. The third match point, again, he got really tight on a forehand and netted a forehand from behind the baseline. He did put himself into that absolute position, but the one shout out I want to give to Jannik Sinner, and we'll get to this a little bit later with Arina Sabalenka, it's the first time in a long time, if ever, I've seen Jannik Sinner be pushed to his limits and for stress to outwardly come out. And that stress is outwardly then coming out on the court. And yet he's still able to compose himself before he made his speech at the end there, and he was still able to kind of take a step back, was able to tolerate the emotions he was experiencing, and then obviously talk beautifully about Alcaraz, about his team. Whereas not all players over that weekend were quite able to do that after losing a final. And talking, and sorry, Neil, to introduce you like this. This is a terrible way to introduce you. Talking of losing a final, because in terms of, and I'm not talking about French Open, I'm talking about Newcastle beating Liverpool in the Carabao Cup. That's the final that I really want to talk to you and Freddie about. But obviously, with you jumping in right now, we're talking, and we want to get into your amazing Roland-Garros. So firstly, from myself, Control the Controllables, a big well done to you, mixed doubles semi-finalist, men's doubles finalist. Well done on a great event, and what's your early reflections on that?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me on again. Yeah, obviously an incredible 2 weeks for myself and Joe and myself and Des. Yeah, probably going into the French Open, we probably just thought, try and get to the second week and see what happens. We were never really thinking of probably winning the whole thing, but the momentum of our clay court season has gone pretty well. We've definitely improved since the start of the season. It's taken time for us to gel as a partnership, and I think people can see now that, yeah, we're starting to gel and able to put some runs together. And yeah, I mean, obviously the final was a disappointment. Definitely the first set, and hopefully you didn't get to see that. They came out pretty strong, and
We didn't have time to turn on the TV fast enough, Neil, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke. I mean, obviously people can obviously get nervous for finals, but we actually weren't. We discussed it. We weren't actually that nervous. We were obviously going in there confident, but they just caught us pretty cold, and they came out really hot. And then we just decided to kind of try and take it as slow as possible, and yeah, just fight as much as we can. And this is what we've kind of been doing over the last few matches. Obviously, getting through the tight one against King and Harrison in the semi-finals, going in a third set tiebreak. That was a close one, and yeah, we just had to fight to try and get back into the match because Grand Slam finals don't come around very, very often. So we hung around, we fought, and managed to sneak that second set, and then somehow we were a break up in the third from kind of thinking we're going to lose this pretty quickly to being a break up in the third, and then the mentality kind of changes pretty quick. I think if we try and hold that game, well, we obviously tried to hold, but if we hold that game, then I think it's a different match. But they're a great team. Granollers and Bios, they've been around for a long time, and obviously they weren't going to give up without a fight.
Can I ask one thing? So you mentioned that break not being able to convert it. What I was thinking from the outside was that break point at 3-all, 15-40, that must have been a gut punch as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good point. I mean, I think looking back at it, I probably should have done a little bit more with the volley, the first volley that I had. I went at Zeballos. I think the rule is to kind of go around the player, not at the player. But in that situation, yeah, you're just trying to make sure you obviously put the ball in the court. You never expect Zeballos to volley it and hit the net twice. So it's obviously hit the net, it's gone up and then hit the net again. And then Joe's obviously reacted well. He's tried to angle the ball off, and then Zeballos has kind of read it, and yeah, he's hit the ball from the net and the sponsorship board through the gap. And then, I mean, I've tried to cover it, but he's hit it so well. It's gone. There's so little time to react. It's gone through my legs. It's like,
did he nutmeg you, right?
Yeah, it was one of those, like, it came at me so quick. It was like, is it gonna go out? And then it's just like, it's on me. It's just gone through my legs, and then it's just. Yeah, it's an incredible shot, and it's definitely one that kind of changed the match, kept them in it, and maybe obviously gave them a little bit more hope.
I just want to hear one more thing, because I thought for me that was the key point of the match. Did you feel like, oh shit, or do you think it just gave them something at that point? Because I don't think you did that much wrong. I think it was the right play. He made a miraculous reflex and then played around the post. What are you gonna do? But it did feel like that was the kind of point where they might feel. I mean, this could be a hard night. Or were you pretty good at getting over it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you see my reaction, I was just laughing because it was an amazing shot, and it was just, I was thinking, I think the tennis gods are with them tonight because obviously they've lost a few Grand Slam finals, and when that goes over, or it goes over and then he hits that shot, it's like, is it their time? But we had chances in the fifth and the 5-all as well. I think we had a couple of break points.
We had a break point, yeah, again a 5-all, yeah.
And there are opportunities that you probably want back. I think he had a good serve to me at 30-40 with big body, over 200 kilometers. Not quite sure what happened at the 15-40 point, but it was quite a long back and forth, a couple of advantages and juices. But obviously, once they get through that, it gives them more confidence. And then, yeah, they played a good game to break me to take the title.
Neil, how do you sleep on a night like that? Like after, you've been in Grand Slam finals now multiple times, you've played mixed doubles Grand Slam finals as well. But obviously they don't get any bigger than that in our sport. how are you able to reflect? Are you someone who watches matches and goes over it and thinks, if only I'd done that, and if only I'd done this? And how quickly, my second part of that question, how quickly are you able to reflect on what a brilliant couple of weeks it's been as well?
Yeah, I mean, I literally going to bed that night, I was not a happy man, but I was very proud of what we'd achieved. We've come a long way from the start of the year. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I mean, after the match, we were in the play lounge. They're all celebrating with champagne. We're all with our crew, our support staff, and on the TV, all the highlights are coming up, and it's the last thing you want to see. But it's kind of nice to see how we fought, because after that first set, actually, I was thinking, are we going to get a game here? I mean, this could be one of the worst, most embarrassing finals to be a part of. So that's why I took a toilet break and tried to kind of steady myself a little bit. But yeah, I mean, after that night, it was more like a sense of pride of getting to a French Open final. I think it's the first time in the Open era that two Brits have ever done it. I think Fred
Since
Perry back in the day.
1936.
Yeah, I think it's Fred Perry and
Charles Tuckey and Pat Hughes.
Oh, it's not Fred Perry.
My research tells me it was Charles Tuckey and Pat Hughes. If
Okay, so
different to that.
I've maybe been told some wrong information by someone.
Good old Chuggy and Paddy.
Yeah, they're good guys then. But yeah, it's obviously a very proud moment for me and Joe, and it's something that we'll obviously look back on now, while we've had a couple of days off, or at the end of the year, to see that we've done something good, and hopefully it's a stepping stone forward for the grass court season.
And mixed doubles semi-finalist. I watched you sneak through a second round mixed doubles in Paris this year, which I wasn't quite sure how, but you did. And then you go on. And I guess my question there is, does mixed doubles become a distraction, or does it become actually something that is almost beneficial because it's getting you on the match court as you go through the event? What stage did that get to during this Roland-Garros?
Yeah, so after we beat Ebden and Piers in the quarterfinal, I think it was, I then had to go on and play my mixed against the number one seeds Pavic and Kitchenov, and I was quite. I mean, it was a long 3-set match. It was warm. I was pretty tired afterwards, and I was thinking, just go out there and have a bit of fun. Just swing and see what happens, and that's what I did. And it was quite a relaxing mixed doubles. Really, this sounds terrible, but it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Against obviously Mate Pavic, who was having an unbelievable season with Arevalo this year. But yeah, Des played great, and yeah, it wasn't too strenuous for me. I was just kind of swinging from the hip, and we won pretty comfortably. So you go into the next round and play again, and then I did think about it. Would it affect my men's doubles? But I had a day off afterwards.
Okay.
So yeah, it wasn't too bad. But I think if there was bad weather, or it started to build up and I was playing back to back and doubling up, then that would be a problem, I think.
The scheduling can get in the way. The one thing I have to jump in there and say as well, you've also had years of county week to help prepare you for a Grand Slam run in mixed doubles and doubles. You know what I mean? 2 doubles matches in a day is nothing compared to 15 and 5 days, huh?
Yes, but I mean, county week is something special. I think you have to experience it once in your lifetime. No new balls after so many games, playing with the same tin for 3 long sets. At the end of county week, the body is very low on energy, and the body's just trying to stay together. But it is great fun. I would advise any young person or who's obviously able to play for the county to play for at least one time, because it definitely helps with mentality, and it definitely makes you grow as a tennis player for sure.
And Neil, last one, because I'm conscious of your time, but a big thanks for jumping on. I feel a little bit guilty. I only invite you on when you make a Grand Slam final, so this is part of the routine now, and the fact that you've been on so much says a lot about your career.
I quite like it
so far.
You're such a fair weather fan, Dan.
This will be just keeping them motivated,
Yeah, hopefully I'll be on after Wimbledon then, eh?
Exactly. This is the idea. I'm trying to keep you motivated. But no, just to go to our text messages that we had yesterday. Obviously, when we were setting you coming up on this, it was during this incredible final, which we were just talking on before you jumped on. And I said during the fourth set, who wins? And you said Sinner. It wasn't even. It was one of the quickest text messages I've got back ever. You said Sinner.
There's only two options.
And then I text you at the end of the fourth and said, who wins now? And I don't think you said the other one, but you said basically there's only one winner now. And I think we all maybe suspected that Alcaraz would then just get away with it in the fifth set. But obviously, to share something actually a parent from the academy said, they said, what a useless match. They wrote a text and said, what a useless match. These guys can't even serve the match out. Right? You know, which was an interesting take on it. But you, as someone who is in that, you know, you're in the middle of your career, you're around these guys in the locker room. What was that match all about yesterday? Incredible. And what does that mean for tennis, having this Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz rivalry, which I know has happened away from the Grand Slams and in a couple of matches in Grand Slams, but it's the first time that it's happened in a Grand Slam final.
Yeah, I mean, it is incredible. That match yesterday, it was, at the end of it, I didn't know what to say. I was lost for words, really. I think it's their first Grand Slam final against each other, right?
Yeah, it is.
So there's going to be plenty more of them, and it's if that's the benchmark of what's to come, it's going to be incredible. Yeah, I think it's very difficult to kind of compare them to what's been in the past, if it was a Nadal and Federer or Djokovic. But these two guys are incredible. They've changing the sport all the time and trying to adapt. Seeing Sinner change his return stance while he's been out of the game into something different. And yeah, these guys are always trying to adapt and trying to find ways to kind of get one over on each other. But yeah, I mean, like you said, we were texting back and forth, and you could just tell that the tide was kind of changing a little bit with Alcaraz. If he'd have got into that fifth set, you could see Sinner. You saw Sinner actually throw his racket for the first time probably in his career. I've never seen that before, and kind of looking at his box and saying some stuff, and then hunching over after getting to one of the drop shots and missing it. And Alcaraz was just kind of not missing, and it was quite incredible. I think one of the stats that came up on the thing was like Alcaraz's forehand was about, they put it as like 9.7 in the last set or something. It was quite remarkable out of 10. So these two they're phenomenal what they're doing. They're only going to get better, and it's quite scary for the guys below them to see these two go at it and the level that they're going to have to get to. But yeah, I'm sure people like Jack Draper was watching yesterday, and he's definitely one that can scare the top two. But yeah, it's going to be interesting what Wimbledon brings, and I'm sure Jack would want to make it the big three.
So last question before you jump off. Who wins men's singles at Wimbledon 2025?
Men's singles, I'll go with Alcaraz. I think he's going to be tough to beat now. I think, yeah, Sinner's obviously got a chance, but I think Alcaraz, he's the one.
Neal, you're a star, mate. Thanks for coming on, and a big well done, and all the very best to you and Joe over the grass court season as well. Keep up the great work, mate.
Cheers, guys. See you soon.
Yeah, congrats on a good fortnight, Neal.
See you, Freddie.
So in terms of that, guys, I think, you know, to bring it back to the Sinner Alcaraz, because there's so many things, right, that there's so many areas to jump into. And Vozzy, to bring you in here, because I know you love my quizzes. Little quiz question. I'm going to let you go first, Vozzy, because Freddie will know the answer to this. He's like the quiz genius. He always gets the quiz questions right. Do you know what the points total was yesterday in the match, Vozzy?
193 to 192. Next one. Come on, speed up, boy, when you're talking to me.
Who had 193?
The one that won.
Nope.
No.
Sinner.
You were doing well. Sinner had 193.
Wow.
So if we take, and the final that I would compare this to, I'm in Morocco, as we know, with the dodgy Wi-Fi, and I was watching it with my son, and he reminded me of me and my wife watching the 2008 Wimbledon final. You know, he was like climbing all over the couch. He couldn't sit still. He was so nervous. He's a massive Alcaraz fan. And if we go to that 2008 final, does anyone remember what the point total was?
Nope.
It was 188 to 187 in favour of Nadal over Federer. And I think, and my next one, which is, if you've seen this is absolutely crazy. Do you know how old Carlos Alcaraz was when he won his 5th Grand Slam yesterday?
Yeah, it's the same age as Nadal. when he won his fifth.
Yeah.
22 years, 3 months, and 3 days. Like, unbelievable how it's literally completely identical in terms of those things. So that then brings me to the next discussion point. And Vozzy, I'm going to throw this to you as well. John McEnroe has said, as people love to compare, right? I know we should just enjoy what we're seeing, but John McEnroe said that he believes that Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, as they are currently playing, would basically school Rafael Nadal in his prime on a clay court. Talk to me.
Yeah, I think he's talking shit. I don't think you can compare. We'll never know is the answer to that question. But that's just a soundbite to get reaction. It's a load of shit. Don't buy it. Not interested in it.
Freddie?
Yeah, I think it's typical. It sounds great, but the dude was, and by the dude I mean Rafa. I think you quickly forget how good he was. He dominated some of the best guys in the world. Um, one of the things I brought up yesterday in our chat group was that a guy like Novak didn't have much of a chance against Rafa and Rafa's peak on clay when Novak was peaking himself, and he's still kind of competing with these guys. I mean, he's still very good, Novak, but I obviously think that he was much better when he was fresh physically. Yeah, I think that's nonsense, and I think it's a little bit of lack of respect as well for Rafa in some ways. I think it's just, yeah, I don't know. He wants to be heard, and completely agree with Voss. It's completely not interesting to me. And I also said that yesterday with you guys that let's just enjoy that we have good tennis and that we have good guys to see, and let's not try to. I hate putting things on pedestals and who's better and who's what. I mean, it's not really interesting to me, like who's better, Messi or Pele. Like, it doesn't really make a difference, right? It's just great to watch. So let's enjoy the fact that we have two youngsters who are really, really interesting from a tennis point of view, and I'm really happy that Vossi brought it up. Really nice people that can compete in a fair manner. I mean, you saw Carlos as well against Shelton give away a point. That's just nice to see.
Yeah, what I like is that there's a spirit of the game. That they play hard. They're going at each other point by point, but there's a fantastic spirit to the game. At the same time, they're being gladiatorial in the arena. So yeah, it's great for tennis. Tennis isn't healthy is a healthy position. Yeah, and I even think the women's game's in a healthy position. You know, with the rivalries that are going on there, and the number of players that are competing at the top, which we'll discuss in further. Can't wait to talk about the press conference.
And just to finish off this one, like we talked about before the tournament, it pretty much happened the way we said it was going to happen, with Sinner pretty much dominating his matches, didn't lose a set, and Carlos a little more. I mean, I'm not going to say he was close to losing, but he lost a few sets along the way. And then when it comes to the matchup, that's why the matchup of sports is just something else. And I'm sure that Sinner would have thought about their previous meetings, even when he was closing out the match or trying to close out the match. And that's just something that could be an X factor, right? Just like Rafa seemed to have Roger's number for a while there. Then this could very well be the advantage for Carlos going forward if he can. But the thing is, he'll have to beat Sinner in the final a lot, because I think Sinner will not lose his level because he looks dialed in.
There's 2 points I want to make before we move on to Sabalenka's press conference, which shouldn't take away from Coco Gauff winning the event, which shouldn't take away from me being the only one to pick Coco Gauff to win the event either, by the way. But my 2 points I want to make is, one, Novak Djokovic's forehand speed apparently was hitting at 6 miles an hour faster in the match against Sinner than he has done in all of his previous matches. So I think that's quite exciting and interesting. I know we're not talking about a comparison of just random eras against random eras, but I think because Novak Djokovic stems across both eras. You know, we've watched him play in those big matches against Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal for so long, and now we're watching him now get to play in these big matches against Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. And the fact that for so many years Djokovic won by being so comfortable, right? He looked comfortable on the ball. It felt like he was never overplaying. Whereas it feels like Jannik Sinner is making people do what Djokovic used to make people do. You know, what do you think on that one, Freddie, in terms of, you know, one, hats off to Novak for his run at French Open to make semi-finals. But secondly, how he said it himself, he felt he had to almost redline. You had to play at that red line to be able to even compete with Jannik Sinner right now.
I said exactly the same things during the match. I said that first of all, I think he feels how people would feel against when they played him during
Yes.
his career. That I felt that Novak could not play better than he did, and I still at no point did I think he had a chance to win. And that's not taking anything away from Novak. That's just, it looked like Sinner was just a step above, hitting the ball too hard. And like you said, Novak had to come up with some extraordinary stuff. I actually think that Novak, and what that might be an interpretation of the quotes there, I don't think he really believed he could win from the beginning, because he came out looking so weird. I mean, he was trying that stop the drop shot stuff, and that worked against Zverev, and I was just unconvinced by it. In my opinion, I didn't think that he didn't look like he thought that this was going to be the right way to win. And then he settled into a way of playing where he actually got really competitive. And I thought it was a great match. He played at a great level. He had opportunities at the end of both sets, and it was a great match at a great level. And Sinner made him play to that level. And at the same time, like I said, I just felt like how that Novak finally must have felt how everybody else felt against him for so many years.
Absolutely. And Vozzy, to bring you in on Neal there brought it up, Jannik Sinner's stance on the return of serve. Again, here in Morocco at the ITF Juniors, I've seen two juniors in the qualifying doing the same, and I've not watched that many matches. But my boy Matthew played a French boy yesterday, and he was doing exactly what Jannik Sinner does on his return of serve. You know, it's already been a bit of a trend that's starting to catch on. What, from a physical standpoint, what's he doing? Is it helpful? What's, you know, obviously it's helpful for him, but explain it.
But I like watching that, like from the angled stance. But as he moves in to make contact, he's square on again. So it's I guess it's the same in what they'll call in cricket. It's that trigger movement. What's helping them to push forward, move into the ball. So I would call it like an angled stance trigger movement to get the body in the right position to make the return. I watched it on a number of occasions and didn't. I think it's just more in the head rather than it actually having like being a huge tactical change to one's game. But I just think it helps with this first trigger movement, that first movement into the court, stepping in on the return. It just helped. He felt more comfortable doing it that way rather than standing square on and moving forward. But ultimately, the position where he's in on the return on contact point is exactly the same as it was before.
Yeah. He talked about it gave him rhythm. It gives him a bit more rhythm into that.
That's your answer. So it's the same with the trigger. It's like same with the trigger movement in cricket. It's giving them that rhythm, that ultimately that trigger step, but they're getting in position at the right time when making contact, whether it's with the cricket ball, cricket bat, or the tennis racket on ball.
Is that a funny thing to change at that stage of his career, though, Freddie, in your experience?
No, I don't think so, because he's quite young still, and he had 3 months to work on it. So I think it was a pretty good time to change. I remember Cilic did the same with his ban. When he came back, he had shortened his toss and came back and won US Open. And you've seen Sinner previously being able to make big changes, such as to his serve. And if he obviously thinks that this gives him better rhythm, like Vossi said, if it comes down to exactly the same physicality, maybe there's a little bit of placebo to it, that you feel like you have to justify being off for that long. I remember during Corona, it was quite weird having that much time off without there being an actual reason for it. So if there's that much time off, it would be an injury, you had to manage something, but to be fresh and be off for that long, I think your mind needs something to work on as well, some kind of goal setting instead of just going out and hit cross courts and whatnot. So, I think it made sense to do it when he did it, and especially if he feels like it makes a difference to him.
And talking of return of serve, it moves us into Coco Gauff. And I know that we want to jump it on Sabalenka with how she reacted after the match. But the reasoning, I was very clear on my reasoning for picking Coco Gauff to win this French Open. And it was that the way that she plays, the way that she moves, the heaviness she plays with her forehand forces opponents into unforced errors. And Aryna Sabalenka hit 70 of those in the final. You know, a 2.5 hour final. Sabalenka clearly not happy with how she played. How much of it, Freddie, is Sabalenka not playing well versus Coco Gauff understanding what it takes to beat a player like Aryna Sabalenka on the biggest of stages? Because let's not forget, she also beat her in the 2023 US Open final as well. And a similar thing happened in that match, where Sabalenka kind of hit herself out of that match, and Coco Gauff did what she does incredibly well.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to it. There's a matchup thing there because, like you said, it had happened before, and to maybe get on this a little bit early. But that's also why, from a coaching point of view, and just as a fan of the game, I was so disappointed with her comments afterwards because, yeah, one thing, she might feel that way, and she might, like, it might be important for her to belittle Coco's achievements and whatnot, but I think it's such a weak signal to send that you're the best player in the world, and you're telling you have an opportunity here to be a little more reflective about it and explain that, yeah, there's a reason why you play bad, right? And maybe she doesn't want to give Coco any credit or anything, but it just kind of justifies any young person that goes out there and just gives the reasoning, I was just shit. It was so shit. I played so bad, and it was just so bad. And I think first of all, it's so boring to listen to. And it's one of the few times where I would actually prefer to hear the standard PR answer, because it's just it is so boring to me. But also, I think she missed a chance to really be a role model and come out and say, I was really disappointed with my level. I didn't have the tools to break her down. She managed to use the conditions to her advantage, and she made it really difficult. And kind of she has an opportunity to explain to people that there's a different way to play tennis. Like it's also like when football managers always come out and belittle teams that play in a low block or hit them on the counter attack, and like only one team wanted to play football out there, and it kills me every time, because there's not one divine right way to play the game. And you have to give Coco the credit, because like you were on it before the tournament, Dan, telling about how much she forces people into overhitting and making mistakes. And you got to respect that. And for me personally as well, growing up in Denmark with Caroline being a big player, and she got a lot of shit for being a defensive and counterattacking person. And I just saw a fun stat about how many weeks she was actually number one in the world compared to a lot of the other big names. And it's almost like, yeah, if it's not spectacular, it doesn't count as much. And I was very disappointed with that. I was very, very disappointed. I think you have to give Coco Gauff the credit.
Fozzie, you weren't happy with Sabalenka in a press conference?
Yeah, I mean, so she's obviously she's actually in your face when she wins in the happy, jovial way, and she's in your face when she loses in a very sour grapes bitter way as well. So I mean, I hope she's learned from that. But ultimately, the whole idea of playing a Grand Slam is putting your body physically and your tennis game into the most adverse conditions, adverse situations to win a Grand Slam. It's never going to be straightforward. You're never going to play the perfect match every single round. And, she blamed the conditions as if it was a negative, whereas, people who are good wind players or people who are good in the mind, good tennis players, will use the wind to their benefit, and how they can use it to break down opponents or frustrate opponents. And I don't think no credit was given to Coco for how she handled those conditions and how she came through. And then also to say that, Swiatek had beaten her in the round before Swiatek would have beaten Coco. It's just an absolute disgrace and disrespect to.
That was the worst.
Sorry?
That was the worst thing for me. I really didn't like that.
That's an absolute disgrace, and trying to just take away the gloss from Coco, who's an unbelievable champion, a young champion, and is going to go on to do even greater and bigger things. And it's clearly somebody that's in Sabalenka's head, because it came out in the press conference that she's like, I've got to work out how to, Coco's basically she was saying Coco's in my head and I need to sort it out. But what also should have said in the press conference, the conditions were really tough. It was the same for both of us, and Coco handled them really well, and she's a deserved winner, and I wish her all the best, and that would be in the end of it. But she tried to make everything, the negativity then became about her losing and not about Coco winning, and very disrespectful, very, very disrespectful.
When she wins and everything is so happy, I hear people say, "Oh, look at this girl, she's funny, she's kind of quirky," and this. Yeah, but if you commit to the act, you got to be consistent. I mean, you can't only sing when you're winning, and I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
well, I don't even, if we take the Stuttgart loss to Ostapenko, I don't know if you saw the speech after that, but she spoke about the Porsche, honestly, did not shut up about this Porsche
Correct.
that Ostapenko was winning, and it was really uncomfortable. It was really uncomfortable. And the other thing that I really dislike is the way that she also passively, aggressively pretends to be joking, saying things to a team after she loses.
Yeah.
And it's again, it says a lot about her. And maybe, look, it's maybe also what makes her the champion that she is. And we talked about this on the preview. She's clearly very determined right now, right? She's in that kind of headspace where winning's the only thing that will satisfy her, and that drive is going to take her a long way. But it just, for me, leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth of the event. And she has talked and gestured a little bit on Instagram. She said, Coco, she put a little, I always think it's easy to get your team to write something on Instagram rather than actually saying it. But she wrote, Coco handled the conditions much better than I did. She was the better player yesterday. Both things can be true. I didn't play my best, and Coco stepped up and played with poise and purpose. A little bit empty, I think, 24 hours on.
She said poise and purpose herself.
Well, exactly. I'm not sure those are the words that would be the
It's
first
too
time
little
we
after
really
the
sound
horse has bolted, I'm afraid. I'm not interested. I read it. I had no interest.
Yeah. And just to bring that in, Fozzie, I think you make a really good point about Coco being in ahead. When I was, towards the end of the match, Coco, and I think I mentioned this on the preview as well, I was watching Coco in practice. I didn't quite realise how much that forehand was working. Like, her forehand is really got work on it, and the bounces. And Sabalenka was almost trying to take it early on the backhand. And there was a couple of times she was looking at the clay court as if she was blaming the clay court. And I was thinking, it's not the clay court.
What, did you know that Roland-Garros have notoriously poor clay courts?
Yeah, this is called topspin. When someone plays with quite ferocious topspin, it bounces off the court, and it's hard to then take that ball as early as Sabalenka normally takes the ball. And I think there's certain things tactically there that she's going to have to work out. I've also said this for a while with Coco. She sorts the serve out. She's the best player in the world. And I don't know what the double fault stats were at Roland-Garros, but I do know that at the end of last year, if you took her double faults away, she wins the most points on anyone on the tour. And she was serving like 24, 27 double faults a match. So I think we're in kind of Coco Gauff time actually a little bit here. I think if she can continue to develop that serve and make sure that it's not letting her down, I actually think once that happens that she's actually the best player on tour right now, and I think it takes a really, really good performance to beat her. I really do. Maybe not on the grass. I'm not sure she's quite ready for Wimbledon yet, but well done. And Iga Swiatek, just a quick one.
And just to finish off that, she seems super sound and grounded, and like her life is in balance. And I really love the party posts on social media. Just good for her. So I think you're right. I think she's got all the tools to be able to stay successful for a long time. I think I saw an interview where they asked her about it. I think it was her 7th French Open.
Crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, she's like still only 19 or something, 21.
Yeah.
Well, you remember she played Venus Williams first round of Wimbledon all those years ago, and I think she was 15 at the time. She was 15 at that time, so that would be 7 years ago, 7, 8, even 8 years ago.
Madness.
Scary. Absolutely scary. But before we move on to our last couple of things, Iga Swiatek, everyone kind of has written her off. There was even, I did a bit of commentary for BBC and they were talking about Emma Raducanu beating her in the second round. And I got asked the question, I was like, what a load of nonsense are you talking? Like, how have we kind of taken Iga Swiatek, who's won the French Open for 3 years, and now we think Emma Raducanu is going to beat her in the second round? What planet are we on? And it was nice to see Iga, still put in a great performance. Talking about conditions, I believe that the roof came over for that match as well, didn't it, for Sabalenka against Iga, which I think, is big advantage there for Sabalenka against Iga in that semi-finals. But it was nice to see her back on track and looking a little bit happier competing out there on the court, Freddie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anybody doubted her quality. I think some of these stories is also a symptom of the time. All the headlines have to be so extreme. She's either there to win or to, like you said, lose to Raducanu in the second round. Just calm down. She's still a good player. She's obviously battling some things that she hasn't had to battle before, but she's obviously still a very competent player. I don't think any of us would have said that she was going to lose early in the tournament. I think we were mostly just pretty convinced it was going to be one of the other girls, which it ended up being. And I think if you had asked us before, we would all say that Iga would give any one of the players a run for their money. So it's just because of the context of how good she's been doing. And I think it's absolutely, let's just take a breather and let her underperform for much longer than she has before we start writing her off. I think form is temporary and class is permanent. So she'll need to be a lot worse for much longer before we really write her off.
Absolutely. And still on women's tennis, moving to the doubles, but obviously Paolini is someone who has done incredibly well on the singles court for so long now. She finally got her first doubles Grand Slam. I know they won the Olympics last year, but her and Sara Errani winning the women's doubles, and then Sara Errani winning the mixed doubles as well. Age 38. It looks like she's about to play for England in the Ashes, the cricket Ashes, when she goes to serve. And you think, how is she able to do this? However, it was actually, one of the girls I worked with, Erin Routliffe, played with Victoria Azarenka, and they played them in the first round. I mean, it's unbelievable how good those two are together, actually, and how smart Errani is on the doubles court. Did you see any of that, Freddie?
I didn't see any of it, but her results has always been consistent, be it with Vinci or whoever she's played with. She's just a quality player, and obviously she has to be, because that serve has always been a point of fascination for me, because she's been able to compete so well with, that in context poor of a shot is really impressive. And she obviously has great hand skills, great understanding of the game, good tactical awareness. I have to admit, I didn't watch any of those matches, but her results has always consistently been good in doubles, and she's a very accomplished doubles player.
Yeah, and I think what we sometimes forget about Sara Errani is she is a Golden Slam winner. And there's not many of them to the dozen, in the game of tennis. They won the Olympics last year. She's won all Grand Slams. She's been a fairly consistent player in singles as well, and to see, and I actually want to share, I think you'll like this, Freddie. Vozzy, I don't know about you. I don't know if you'll care. In terms of watching her practice, I watch quite a bit of practice when I can. And it's always, every practice session I see her have, I want to be part of. I'm always like, that looks fun. And it's so much like games in the box, it's like, there's nothing boring about it. Like tennis players have so many boring practices, right? We hit from the bat, we get a bit of rhythm, we change cross, we do a bit of this, we do that. And even doubles players, they'll do kind of monotonous, boring stuff where it's all competition based, which is what she does. And it's, they'll do a lot of half court games, a lot of in the box games where you can serve volley and then you're ripping the ball at each other, and you see that in how she plays on the court as well, which is mightily impressive. And I think that's also one of the reasons why she's still playing at that age, right? And speaking to her coach earlier this year in Miami, he said he's had to go that direction, because one of the things we forget about Vozzy is one of our jobs is to keep people in the game and keep them happy and keep their welfare in check as well, huh?
Yeah, and it's also keeping it fresh, making sure that they're excited about coming out the next day or for the next practice. if the practices become boring and monotonous, it's only a question of time before they're like, A, they actually don't want to practice, or B, they're just like, oh my God, are we doing this again? Get them excited about up for practice, up for training, whether it's in the gym, whether it's on the court, whether it's fun games. I mean, obviously within reason. I mean, there's also the reality of it. You've got to do some basics here that are going to keep you in good stead, for your ranking and what you're trying to achieve. But yeah, if you can make it fun, I tell you, a guy who does that quite well as well is Colin Beecher. He'll make fun games and stuff. I've seen him at the NTC. I know we're talking, different, but he'll try and keep it fun, and the players love it. And so if you're working with a small team and you can do that with your players, obviously they're gonna enjoy it and think it's they look forward to the next practice. So
How do
yeah,
you do
It's
that?
actually something that we think about a lot with our practice, because we have a few networking groups with other sports, and one of my table tennis colleagues is very inspired by this new wave of French players who are doing it everything outside the box, but everything competition based, and we've been trying to experiment a little bit. I still think we could do more, but it could be circus drills, like really weird exercises, and the players love it. It's really strange. That's really what gets them going the most. Is we would have the most random drills, and they think it's funny. It's the time they laugh the most. I'm like, really?
what you could do, which is a really good game, is you could get deodorant and put them on all the lines across the court, and get Boisson and Harriet Dart run across them and take a spray of them and see which one smells the best at the end.
How have we not talked about her? Poisson. I mean,
I
wow.
mean, what
300,
a beast!
300,
What a
Yeah.
beast!
365 in the world. I mean,
Yes, but there's an asterisk to that, right? She tore her ACL 1 year
Yeah,
ago.
but
okay. But she wasn't a semi-finalist of a Grand Slam level by any stretch of the imagination, right? But tell me, and Harriet can't be feeling good. I mean, after what Harriet said about her, that obviously went viral a couple of months ago, basically walking past the umpire and basically telling her to put some deodorant on like Vossi
It's a
said.
shocker. It's a
But
shocker.
you kind of, we've all said and done stupid things in our time, right? But let's say that's happened, and then this girl just disappears off the face of the earth. It kind of just goes. The last thing you want is that girl then having this incredible run at Roland-Garros, and now everybody's talking about her. And then secondly, everyone's now, like ourselves and other people, are now, rehashing Dovegate.
look, I just love the story behind it. Yeah, she obviously competed well, and to make the semis is a hell of an effort. Beat some good players along the way. So, and she obviously is a good athlete, strong, which I love. Yeah, there's obviously areas of the game that she needs to work on. I'm not qualified to say that, but her backhand, obviously, just one area that I think needs big improvement. But I love her forehand, good serve, good mover. Let's see where she goes.
Sakari-esque, a little bit
Yeah, a
Sakari-esque,
little,
maybe.
yeah, Sakari-esque, yeah. But I think, yeah, I think she's stronger than Sakari.
And how does she, on that one, Fred, going from 360 up to 60 in the world? I remember a certain Freddie Nielsen back in 2012 that had a pretty dramatic rise in ranking after winning Wimbledon. And all of a sudden you go from playing certain tournaments to then being involved in the higher echelon events. How was that change for you, and how does she quickly adapt to, I guess, her newfound position in the world of tennis, at least for the next 12 months, right?
I think you could really compare with me, because I wasn't really trying to consistently make it in doubles. So for me, it was just basically a chance to compete. And my mental coach used to call it. We have the oldest amusement park in the world, Tivoli. You can buy a year pass for it, and he said you basically just want a year pass for Tivoli for all these doubles, when you can go and do all the rides and have fun. And then after a year, you're back to reality. So it goes, you can obviously see it go a few ways, but I've seen so many people have such good results in short time. And then they get kind of imposter syndrome, and they're like, I'm here. I don't really belong here. It's gone so quick. Or when they think they have to maintain that ranking by playing absolutely insane tennis. And then when they then start to get closer again to the same result the next year, they start worrying about defending those points. I think it's a different one to just having consistently good results, and hopefully she'll use this to push on, because she did well. She came in having won I think a 60K before that as well, so her ranking was already going up. So she was playing good tennis, but hopefully she'll use this to. She'll get into all the slams now for the next year, and she'll get into some bigger events, and hopefully she'll be able to settle her ranking a little bit. But it's definitely, like you say, it is a challenge. It's a different one because it kind of goes boom out of nowhere, and it's not like it's a. I mean, the easy example for a British podcast would be Raducanu, for example. I think that's one of the points that people forget a lot. That she had that good result, but she was never a top 10 player, and it came quick. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I think people have been very harsh on her unfairly. Like, she had a very good result, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are that level of player just from one day to the other. And she was never that. So I think cut her some slack, and she's starting to find some solid ground under her feet now. And hopefully the same can be the case for Boisson.
And talking of dark horses, well, we're just talking about, I actually called on BBC, I called a poisson. I got the name wrong. I think that's fish.
You
That's
called a fish?
isn't it? Yeah, instead
You
of
went
drink.
from beverage instead of beverage.
Exactly. Yeah. So hopefully nobody picked that up. But as I said it, I was like, oh my God, I'm sure that's fish. I don't think that is her name. Anyway, just kind of moving. Maybe the Geordie accent hid it a little bit. But the dark horses. Now, you guys wouldn't give me the dark horse pick of Ethan Quinn on our WhatsApp group. There's lots of competition on our WhatsApp group. Basically, ridiculing of each other's poor picks tends to be the way that it goes at most Grand Slams. But whether I picked him or not, I did mention him. And
You just said his name.
But what he did say when he was on the podcast a few weeks ago is, which then kind of enlightened that conversation that we had around the Americans, right? That he said the Americans don't really travel to the European clay courts so well. He feels it within the pack. He feels that it's a little bit of a hassle for them. Whereas here we are, and we discussed this a couple of weeks ago, but here we are through to the second week. On the men's side, we had Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton, Francis Tiafoe. Tommy Paul and Tiafoe, I believe, both went on to make quarterfinals. And then we had Coco Gauff, Jess Pegula, Madison Keys, my girl Amanda Anisimova, and also Hailey Baptiste. All made the second week of the French Open. Ethan Quinn made the third round. It felt like maybe the Americans got over the hump a little bit in terms of their relationship with red clay and their relationship with Roland-Garros, Kieron.
They had a good showing in the second week, but I wonder how many went home after Rome before the French, the ones that lost early in Rome. I wonder if any of them hopped back to the States and then came back for the French. Like, a lot of the Brits, or when I say a lot, there's not that many Brits, but if they lose early in Cincinnati, they fly back to London before going to New York. We'll never know. But maybe it's maybe Ethan Quinn he's talking, but it's a bit of a myth, because I haven't heard that, if I'm honest, before, that the Americans didn't travel that well or struggled in Europe. But what I did know is that if they lost early in the French, and they were playing Queens, they would go home back to the States for 6-7 days before coming back to Queens on Tuesday or Wednesday, say, of this week, to get ready for the men's Queens starting the week, on the 16th.
Well, I think traditionally, Vozzy, a lot of Americans have skipped Monte Carlo and have played Houston.
Yeah, but to a certain degree, I can swallow that pill, because Monte Carlo is, you're basking in the name more than the conditions. It can be heavy. It plays nothing like Paris, and also they probably view it as it's going to be a long swing in Europe. So to miss Monte Carlo, because then the following week is Barcelona, and then come over and then start in Madrid and Rome and then the French, to me makes a lot of sense. That doesn't mean that they don't like traveling. That's just smart move. It's like a lot of the Europeans, when they go over to America in the American swing, they sometimes they start in Toronto, and they won't play They won't play Atlanta. They won't play Washington, which is 2 weeks because they know there's a long haul. And so you find the better players like your Sinners or your Djokovic's will only start in Canada and may even miss Canada and only start Cincinnati. For that same reason, if they've had a long time on the grass or a long clay, long grass, it just makes sense that they do it. So I think you got to take into those factors. And I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying that that could be the reason, but yes, I do. I also do take on board the comments that you would hear an American go, "Oh my God, the rooms are so hot in Europe. The beds are so small. That it's not like it's very different, obviously, conditions to accommodation conditions to what they're used to in the US. But I think it's just a schedule. I think it's just more a scheduling thing than them not wanting to come.
Yeah, but Freddie, I actually on Candy was doing live podcasts every day. Sorry, Vozzy, you weren't invited to Candy's live podcast either. There's something about you and live podcasts that people
That's
don't
fine,
trust you
Candy.
on.
That's fine. No worries, Candy. It's all noted on this podcast. It's fine. I'm not
By the
welcome, and
way,
don't call me.
you're both invited the Sunday before Wimbledon. We're going to do a live podcast Sunday before Wimbledon. So we're going
All right.
to do it at John Morris's agency house. We're going to do our live preview from there, and I would love you two both there. I'm not sure about Candy or Calvin, considering they've let us down today. But on Candy's, she invited me a couple of times, and one day when I came on, all of a sudden Brian Shelton was on as well. I wasn't expecting Brian to be on, and it was a real honour actually. Ben had just lost to Alcaraz the day before, and it was very interesting to hear his insights and how happy he was actually with Ben's development on the clay. He said something I thought was really interesting, which we know in tennis, but basically if Ben had won the right points in two more sets, 2 points at the right time in set, would it have been set 2 and set 3 against Alcaraz? That was a match that he absolutely could have won. So he was very pleased with his development and where he got to in the last 12 months. And it feels for me maybe Shelton is maybe the American who could make a bit of a breakthrough against some of those players just because of purely the way that he serves and hits the tennis ball. What do you think of Ben Shelton, Freddie, and where his chances are now moving into the grass and onto the American hard courts as well, talking about making a bit of a breakthrough in one of these big events?
I can totally agree because he, when you got that cannon, and it doesn't hurt that it's a left-handed cannon, it's going to give you a lot of freedom to take some chances and some risks, and you can get away with a lot of stuff. On top of that, he has in my opinion, a great attitude towards the whole his approach on the tour. He's very opportunistic. He always applies himself well. Even last year, when he was last year, 2 years ago, the first year he was actually traveling properly. Had never been outside America. He was attacking the clay court season, the grass court season, trying to make the most of it. I think he's got that the good kind of cockiness that you need as a player to kind of go out in court and think, I'm going to be able to make a result here. Like, I'm not here to just make up the numbers or say that I'm an American who can't travel to Europe and play on clay. I think he seems like, yeah, this Carlos guy on clay, yeah, I can take him. And I think he genuinely believes that. I've always kind of waited because I feel like his game is a little volatile, that he was going to have a few dips and ranking dips and maybe not maintain, but it just hasn't come. And I think he's only going to get better with the way he plays. I mean, he has had a few good runs in Australian Open and US Open. There'll be another time where he feels it and he gets another good run. I think he's one of those guys that players would hate to play. He's also one of those guys that if he were to lose first round, I would be particularly surprised as such. So, like I said, it's a bit of an unpredictable guy, but I really like his approach, his mentality, and really dangerous game. Lively arm, plays the game opportunistic, takes his chances, tries to win the match on his own racket. Good attitude. I know I've know of his dad a little bit because he was coaching one of my players at college level. Seems like a very sound guy, very very good coach. and somebody that's good for Ben to have in his corner. So it seems like the recipe is there, and I think he's putting together a really good career.
The last player, this is going to be random because we were talking about the Americans, but he's popped into my head, and we absolutely slept on him in the preview. We didn't mention him once, and I don't believe we can go through the whole review and not mention him once as well. And that is a certain Lorenzo Musetti, who was 18-4 on the clay courts this year. Made semi-finals or better, I believe, of all of the major events, from Monte Carlo to Madrid, Rome, and then Roland-Garros as well. I had to look his age up because I was like, Musetti's like, my son was asking, I was like, oh, he's like 26, 27. No, he's not. He's 23. He's young. It feels like he's pushed himself massively into that conversation. Where did he get the Wimbledon semis last year?
Wimbledon semis last year. But can I just add the point that he was lucky to be on the court after that incident with kicking the ball to the lines judge.
He was,
you know, and I think it's just weird how certain umpires interpret the rules differently, and probably if that was Novak would have been deefed yet again. We'll never know, but obviously TFO was asked a question after, and he was just saying there's inconsistencies in the interpretation of the law, and so that he was lucky.
There was a Japanese doubles girl who was defaulted for something quite benign a few years ago that seemed similar.
Kato. Yeah, 2 years ago, Kato.
That seemed like that was kind of the same ballpark. It wasn't particularly aggressive and just happened to hit somebody.
Yeah. How good is he, Fred?
Well, obviously he is very good. He's always got big talent.
He's football, that's for sure.
And he's made big steps forward with his serve and forehand. I always thought that his forehand wasn't going to be big enough to compete against the slam winners of the world. I think quarterfinal, semifinal, sure, winning tour events here and there, absolutely. But I just feel like he didn't have enough natural pop on his forehand to compete consistently against the best guys. And I still think that's kind of the case. He beat Holger, of course, but I think Holger, he got a little bit gassed. That's also what he said, because Holger was outplaying him in the second set, and then all of a sudden he wasn't there anymore. But apart from that, it's tough to say, but he had a decent draw, I think, in this tournament, Musetti, and he's good at beating those guys that he's
Did he have a decent draw the whole clay court season?
No, but we're talking. Is this not the French Open review? Or?
Would you say decent draws playing Holger in the French Open? I thought that would be quite tough.
Yeah, but it was in the fourth round, right? That's kind of the level you play in the fourth round. I think, like I said, that was the one tough match, and I think I thought Holger was going to win that match, and he did well to obviously win it. I think after the second set, I thought Holger was going to run away with it, and then he got a little bit gassed. But apart from that, yeah, I think that he's a very good player. He's in and around top 10. I think he's the sort of level as maybe Taylor Fritz, Tommy Paul kind of level right now. But I think he has the willingness to work on it. I think the Italians in general, we talked about Sinner's return stance and serving. He's also been willing to make some changes on the serve, and he's popping the forehand a little more. So he could. I mean, who knows? Stranger things have happened, but I just feel like he belongs in that second tier after the ones that are gonna compete for the slams.
The second tier's Sinner, Alcaraz, and then the next ones, no?
Yeah, maybe it looks like that now, but I don't know. It's just difficult for me to put Novak in the second tier still. I know hasn't won a lot for a long time, but he won the Olympics last year. He did push Sinner a little bit. I don't know. It's just, I always have this thing about ruling out the extraordinary champions. I think it's tough for me to just say that he's in the second tier of players in the world, and he's still competing quite well. So I think he's getting close to being one of the guys who can knock on the door. But I still think that he needs a little bit of development before we start thinking about slam finals and competing for slams.
I want to ask you guys.
I like him. Don't get me wrong. I like him. He's a great guy. Competes well when he doesn't kick ball lines people. he carries himself quite well. He's a sympathetic guy, plays beautiful tennis. So I like that he's one of the guys up there. And I think he also benefits a little bit from Sinner taking all the Italian attention.
I think he deserves to get our mention, right? Like I say, I certainly was kind of kicking myself a little bit as I was watching the tournament unravel, and I was like, "Oh my
Because you
God, this
didn't
guy's..."
put him in your bracket of 15 players to watch out for.
No, I like to respect people. You know, I know that people listen to this. I think people deserve our respect, right? And I think, I know that this is not listened to by millions and millions of people, but there is a fair amount of people in the tennis world that listen to this, and I think it deserves our respect, just as who I'm about to mention now absolutely deserves our respect, and that is Ordu and Alfie Hewitt, who had another incredible battle in the wheelchair tennis final. You know, that's really developed. I mentioned it after Australia. I was in the stadium in Australia when Alfie Hewitt beat Ordu, and who is one hell of a talent, but also one hell of a character. And that was a 6-4, 7-6 final. This time Ordu got him in the final, but it seems like those two are going back and forth, which I think is great for wheelchair tennis. And I think we'll see, hopefully we'll see them play each other maybe in the final at Wimbledon as well, because the British crowd are massively getting behind wheelchair tennis. And also then to Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid, who won their 6th French Open in a row, certainly kind of pushing that sport more and more. We're getting more and more fans watching those matches, the getting on the bigger courts, and they absolutely deserve our respect as well, as do, I can't go through them all, but all of the juniors, all of the various wheelchair events that they do have at the events. But yeah, a big shout out to them as well. And then just my last thing, guys, obviously we will have...
And just to say that everybody needs their respect. I mean, they're Grand Slam players here. They're good, but
yes,
a guy like Musetti, I mean, you can't go through the entire draw, right? So if we
no,
talk
but
about the
I think...
but if we talk about the three categories we have, he's not a dark horse. He's not somebody who, I think we all agree that he was never going to be one of the guys who wins it, and he's not going to be the winner. So he kind of falls in no man's land in those kind of categories. He was always going to be a good guy, tough to beat, but then if you don't talk about him, then you have to mention Tommy Paul, and what about Zverev and all these guys, and there's just a lot of good players. It doesn't mean disrespect that we didn't mention him. It's just important to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we move into the grass, I hope you guys will be with me, for the preview, and we'll get into more detail. But as we've already started the grass court events this week. What are a couple of your thoughts, a couple of your kind of throw out potential storylines to look out for over the next 4 or 5 weeks on the green stuff, Fozzie, or the brown stuff by the end of the 5 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to see a British fairy tale. Someone do well consistently over the grass. Like last year, I was really pleased with Billy Harris, who had very consistent results. That actually pushed his ranking close to top 100 or just inside top 100 by the end of the grass. So it's always nice to look out for them. I think I would be. I don't know which event she would be getting the wildcard into, but Hannah Klogman, she's definitely got one into qualies because she was junior national champion, but whether they award her one into the main draw, I think that could potentially be a good storyline. Obviously made the final of the French juniors. I think that's one to look out for. I think I think Raducanu could have a nice run. What I'm pleased about is she's consistently playing. There's less and less noise around her, apart from Jonathan Overend at the start of the year saying she's going to win a slam this year, which is just outrageous. But just getting her to play, she's consistent, she's not injured, she's back working with Cavaday on the grass as well as Patch, so she's got a very trusted team around her. So be interesting just to see that. I mean, obviously, some of the big British girls striking the ball. Katie Bolter may go on a bit of a run. They've got to be lucky with the draws. I'd like to see on the men's side, I'd like to see Dan Evans get a wild card and do some damage. He's running out of time in terms of, he's obviously 33 or 34 now. Yeah, and I'd like to see a real dark horse who's grass court savvy do some damage on the grass. Those would kind of be the storylines. Maybe shock a seed in the early rounds. So I'm looking forward to it. But a lot we'll see on the form guide, I guess, starting this week in Holland and in Germany. But going into Queens and then getting a feel from who the players who are looking sharp, looking good, and then obviously relying on somewhat a decent draw, because as you know, once you win a couple of rounds and you've got a couple of rounds under your belt, there's momentum, there's belief, et cetera, et cettra. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, Sunday Cartel beat Kazakhina today at Queen's.
Correct.
So there's the first kind of British scalp, I guess, on
Yeah, Burridge
the
lost to
grass
your
court.
girl from America in 3, Anisimova.
Yeah, that's not a bad effort to get a set off her, because
Yeah.
Anisimova is a serious player. I don't know if I've mentioned her before, guys, but she's a one to watch.
I mean, she
And
was ranked 190. She was ranked 190 this time last year, and she's ranked 15. It's incredible.
I told you guys, you know what I mean. This is where you get it. And Dan Evans is qualified also, I believe, out in Holland
Correct.
or
Yes, he
in.
qualified.
So that's good as well. You know, this is, like you said, I think this is his time, right? This is his time to. He
Yeah,
needs to put in a
it'd just
proper
be nice. It'd
record
just
show.
be nice to see it, because obviously he can play. I mean, he's won Washington, and he's made semis of Master Series events. So it'll be a nice story. I think it'll be a good story. Obviously, he hasn't done well on the grass in recent years, but he's got the ability. So it'll be a good story.
And Fred?
Everybody's going to be talking about the rematch from French Open final. I think in the Wimbledon final. I think there's also going to be people are going to start talking about Novak and when he's going to retire. I was thinking that it struck me the way he walked off the court after he lost to Sinner. It kind of looked like he was saying goodbye to the court. And then I believe he also said afterwards that he didn't know if he was going to come back. So I think he looks sneaky good. I think he's one to watch in Wimbledon. I think he'll like that nobody is thinking, especially after this final now, nobody's going to really be giving anybody else in the draw any kind of time of day for title talks besides Carlos and Yannick. And I think he's going to enjoy being there for the kill. I think he thinks he still has one more in him. So I think that that storyline around him could be really interesting. And and then it's gonna be really interesting to see for me if Coco can do something on the grass, because like you guys said, and we've always said that I've always mentioned her on this podcast, if Anisimova as your kind of player to go to, I've always picked Coco as a star in this, and I really like that she's getting the benefits, and I hope she can go and put together a good grass court season, because I really like her and I think she's great for the game.
She is, absolutely. I think for me to kind of piggyback on your Novak, that was the storyline that was in my head, because I actually think this might be his last chance. And
I don't disagree.
I think this is really interesting on how he's going to prepare the next few weeks, because anyone that really watches closely could see that Novak was going into lockdown mode before French Open, in how he was preparing. If you saw him play in Geneva, you could just see he was getting into that mode, right? And I think it's going to be really interesting how he does what he does. I don't know what his tournament plan is the next few weeks. I know he used to, after the French Open, he would spend quite a bit of time actually in Marbella, out in Spain. He would do lots of bike rides, and then he would start hitting on a local grass court. And he would tend to not play a run-up tournament normally to Wimbledon after the French.
Did he play Hurlingham or something always?
Yeah, he would play those type of
Something
exhibitions, but he wouldn't play an ATP event. Now, I don't know what he's entered for or not, but I would imagine he's going to go back into that lockdown mode of absolutely getting his mind and body in the right place for Wimbledon, because I think he probably feels, obviously Carlos has won it the last couple of years, so Carlos has proven that he can do it on the grass, but there's not that many players in the draw that have, and he's got the knack of Wimbledon, right? He knows how to play on those courts, he knows how to play grass court tennis. Once we get into the American hard courts, it's hard to see him get past a Sinner on a hard court, as an example. And he also knows then he's got the Americans that are very difficult, Fritz, and these guys become very tough on the American hard courts as well, as many players are. But I just think, Wimbledon, in his mind, this could be his last chance, and I would imagine he's going to pretty meticulously get himself ready over the next few weeks. And whether I still say it the Sunday before Wimbledon, but right now I'm maybe edging towards Novak being my pick for Wimbledon this year.
I don't think it's a particularly bad pick, I have to say.
Boys, as ever, a big thank you. Well done on facing the music, unlike Candy and Calvin, who managed to hide from us. What a pleasure it was to have Neal, the French Open finalist, fresh from that, and just to see his whole outlook on that as well was a lovely insight to have. Really appreciate it.
And well done to you, talking so much about your Coco pick that it drowned all your other shit picks. That didn't get any airtime.
hold on. Ethan Quinn. And
it was not a pick. Stop claiming it.
And by the way, my dark horse for the record was Danilovic, who beat Danielle Collins in the second round, and then she played Sabalenka, and I watched that match. She put Sabalenka under some problems in that third round a little bit. Score didn't fully reflect it, maybe, but I think that was a solid pick. It was better than, and this is our last one. And Calvin's got away with this one. And we've got it on social media. We haven't put it on social media yet, but the video's ready to go. And it's the image of Calvin. All he needed was a cigar in his mouth. He didn't quite have the cigar, but he was leaning back as he announced to everyone on Control the Controllables that Cerundolo will never loses to players that he is ranked higher than. To which we responded, he is ranked 18 in the world. And then we went through the draw, and he basically told us that Cerundolo was going to beat Djokovic in the quarters, couldn't see him losing to him, and was going to probably make semi-finals, to which he lost first round. Which is why we love tennis, right? Because it's played on a tennis court. It's not played on paper, but we love Calvin and his picks and all of his opinions, as I love your guys' opinions as well. So thank you so much, as ever, for joining us, and hopefully see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Good luck to Matthew down in Morocco.
Thank you, guys. So there we have it. The second major of the year it's gone. Once again, it didn't disappoint. It's unbelievable. It's like each one of them's its own movie. There's just so many ups and downs, and the storylines were incredible. But we did talk about it, but we have to also again pick out Boisson. That run that she had was quite incredible, to go from being 365 in the world to make it all the way to the semi-finals. And then arguably the greatest ever men's singles final of a Grand Slam. I know people will have their favourites, and maybe this is the start of a Grand Slam rivalry, in a rivalry that we've seen. I think they've played each other maybe 18 times, so it's certainly a pair that we've seen play each other in, Alcaraz and Sinner, quite frequently. But to see it on the biggest of stages on that Sunday afternoon, we just need to see it, the television audiences, in terms of the viewing figures for the Coco and Sabalenka final, and also for the Sinner and Alcaraz final. The numbers are sky high, and that's what the sport wants and needs, right? It wants those rivalries, as all of sport. We've had Federer and Nadal over the years. We've had Sampras and Agassi. We've had Borg and McEnroe. We've had Chrissy Evert and Martina Navratilova. We've had Venus Williams and Serena Williams. Are we now going to get Sabalenka Gauff? This is what the sport demands. This is what the viewers globally demand. The ones that maybe aren't quite the tennis enthusiasts, but the ones that come to watch the final on that Sunday. And it's certainly produced in that. I also spoke in the podcast about Alfie Ewart and Odo, who are they got their amazing rivalry going right now. In the doubles, I think they struggle with that. That's one of the areas that doubles struggles a little bit on, because they're changing partners so much. You then lose a bit of that rivalry. As a big Newcastle United fan, I've known that for years. When Sunderland come into town, and any Sunderland fans, I am pleased you've gone up, because we get the derby, we get the rivalry next year. The El Clasico here in Spain. These are what get our imagination going in sport, and I for one would love to see those matchups even more. But I also love the Roy of the Rovers stories, and the Boisson story was certainly one of those, and to start to see some of these other players that are coming through, and it won't be long before we are discussing the green grass of SW19. We've already started this week in Queen's Club, in Toggenbosch, in Stuttgart, the grass courts in Ilkley. Last week, during the French Open, it came even earlier in Birmingham and Edgbaston as they started the ATP and WTA events there a little bit earlier than normal. And this is what we've got to look forward to. You would have heard me mention that we plan on doing some live shows. We plan on really being quite active during this year's Wimbledon. So please send out, what do you want? Who do you want to hear from? Who do you want us to try and interview? The producer, Harry, our producer, has got his media badge. He's going to be on site for the 2 weeks. I'll be there in a coaching capacity, but also jumping in and doing some live shows as well. So come and say hello to us. Let us know what you want to hear during Wimbledon this year. We do plan on, like I say, having our preview show as a live show that's going to be going out there on the Sunday afternoon or evening, the day before Wimbledon starts. So please get involved in that. Make sure if you don't come and see us, you make sure that you are streaming in on that as well. And as ever, a big thank you for all of your support on the podcast. But until next time, I'm Dan Kiernan, and we are Control the Controllables.